bankers and assassins of the Mafia. The Cuntrera Mafia clan have been nicknamed the Rothschilds of the Mafia and are active in Canada, United States, Sicily, South America, and Aruba. Jaime Caruana is an international banker that works for the Bies and also as a relative of the Cuntrera Mafia. The Bourbon Two Sicilies and Bourbon Parma families are the primary owners of the Cuntrera Mafia. They get their nickname for their involvement in banks and money laundering. They work closely with the Rizzuto crime family of Canada, which are sometimes referred to as the Sixth Crime Family because they operate in New York City. The Rizzuto and Cuntrera crime families are basically the same mafia organization. The name Caruana refers to the caruncle of the castor bean plant or Ricinus communis. The deadly toxin ricin comes from castor bean plants and has been used for covert assassinations throughout history. The name Rizzuto is connected with ricin as well. Riz means rice in French. I believe the Cuntrera clan are one of the most dominant mafia factions in the world because of their banking connections and access to ricin, which they have covertly used to take out their competitors. I believe that ricin was used to assassinate various leaders, cardinals, and popes in Italy. Pope Pius VIII was believed to be poisoned and he refused to submit to Napoleon. The Bourbon Two Sicilies family are currently married with the House of Bonaparte. The Cuntrera and Rizzuto crime families are known to be extremely violent and kill off their competitors in other mafia clans. The castor bean plant can be found around Sicily and all around the Mediterranean. The Rizzuto clan's violence has caused backlash against them and many members have been killed off in recent years. The gangster Giuseppe Renda went missing in 2010 and it's possible this was to evade assassination. He is high level and might be hiding out with the Detroit Partnership due to their locations near the Canadian border, or more than likely hiding in Cuba, where the Italian Bourbons also own mafias, including the Trafficante crime family, which have casinos in Cuba. Leonardo Rizzuto has high authority over the Rizzuto crime family and is currently on trial for drug trafficking. Leonardo Rizzuto is real wicked. It has been revealed that the Cuntrera Mafia have been covertly running Aruba and using it for money laundering through offshore accounts. Many suspect the Mafia purchased a large amount of Aruba's properties and businesses during the 1980s. Even as known international drug smugglers with arrest warrants, the Araban officials allowed them to continue doing business operating a nightclub. Alfonso Caruana established residences in Italy, Switzerland, Venezuela, London, and Canada, creating a network for their drug trade and money laundering. Venezuela takes its name from Venice, Italy. Prince Lilio Sforza Ruspoli has tourist properties on the island of Margarita in Venezuela. The Italian and Spanish nobility established Latin America and still have their influences built into these nations today, like the military dictator Emilio Gerastazu Medici of Brazil. The Jesuits established communist settlements in South America known as the Jesuit Reductions. The Ruspoli family are intermarried with Italian-immigrated Brazilian Matarazzo merchant family. The Bourbon Two Sicilies family have established residences in the Brazilian cities of São Paulo and Rio de Janeiro with Prince Casimir of Bourbon Two Sicilies and his children. The Ruspoli family are also Spanish nobility and they have ownership over some South American drug cartels. The Spanish monarch and the Jesuits conquered much of South America. Prince Francesco Ruspoli is the head of the Ruspoli family today and Grand Chancellor of the Bourbon Two Sicilies Sacred Constantinian Military Order of St. George. The Dutch Queen Hortense de Beauharnais was married to King Louis Bonaparte of Holland and they lived in the Ruspoli's properties in Rome. Prince Napoleon Charles Bonaparte of Canino married Princess Maria Cristina Ruspoli. Italian-Spanish nobility run the drug cartels and mafia organizations which pay their dues back to the dons of Spanish-Italian nobility. Prince Alessandro Ruspoli was even in the movie Godfather 3. The black nobility use their Jesuits to run universities and recruit Roman agents who infiltrate governments, politics, law, business, and military. Liborio Cuntrera is the top boss of the Caruana Mafia today. Last year the courts suspiciously dropped their drug trafficking charges against several top members of the Rizzuto and Cuntrera mafias including Liborio Cuntrera and Marco Pizzi. I believe the Bourbon family of Italy paid off crown officials to drop their case against high-level members of the Mafia in Montreal. The Caputo, Sir Lupi Crescenzatabani, and Torrentasso families owned the Toronto crime families like the Mustianos, Lupinos, and Papalius with Prince Salvatore Caputo as a top owner with a residence in Toronto. The Toronto crime families are allied with the Montreal crime families. The Caruana Mafia are from Sicily. The House of Bourbon Two Sicilies and Bourbon Parma own this faction of the Mafia and once ruled most of Sicily and hold a claim to the title of King of Sicily today. The Ruspoli family are intermarried with the Spanish Bourbons and are part owners of the Rizzuto crime family. The Caruana and Rizzuto mafias operate in Ahuwah, which was recently part of the Empire of the Netherlands. The Bourbon Parma family, which are closely related to the Bourbon Two Sicilies family, are intermarried with the Dutch royal family which rule the Netherlands. Prince Carlos Hugo of Bourbon Parma married Princess Irene of the Netherlands. Prince Carlos the Duke of Parma and Prince Jaime the Duke of Bardi are Dutch-Italian princes of Bourbon Parma. Prince Carlos of Bourbon Parma is the head of the Parma branch and Prince Carlo of Bourbon Two Sicilies and Prince Pedro of Bourbon Two Sicilies are the heads of the Two Sicilies branch. The Farnese family established these houses through the marriage between Elizabeth Farnese and King Philip V Bourbon of Spain. The eldest son established the House of Bourbon Two Sicilies and the second eldest son established the House of Bourbon Parma. The Farnese family also officially established the Jesuits under Pope Paul III or Alessandro Farnese. The Rizzuto and Caruana Mafia families primarily operate out of Montreal. The Jesuits established several schools in Montreal which merged with other universities. Prince Michel of Bourbon Parma was Jesuit educated in Montreal and lives in Florida. The Italian Bourbons own the trafficant crime family of Florida and Cuba. Cuban Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and his family are friends with the Cuban Castros. The Bourbon Two Sicilies family are the Dukes of Castro like the Castro family that rule Cuba. They share similar origins. The House of Bourbon Two Sicilies work with the British Grosvenor family who were the Grossi family of North Italy, and it is why their mafia operates in Canada, which is part of the British Commonwealth and under the authority of Canada's constitutional monarch Queen Elizabeth II. Donald Trump appointed Leandro Rizzuto Jr., son of a billionaire, as ambassador to the British Crown colonies of Barbados, St. Lucia, and St. Kitts and Nevis. The Dutch backed Barbados when it attempted to gain its independence from the British Crown. The imprisoned mobster Alfonso Caruana is the top boss of the Caruana Mafia. Prince Jaime Bernardo of Bourbon Parma, Count of Bardi, born October 13, 1972, is the second son and third child of Princess Irene of the Netherlands and Carlos Hugo, Duke of Parma. He is a member of the royal and ducal House of Bourbon Parma, and also an extended member of the Dutch royal family and a Dutch nobleman with the title Prince de Bourbon de Parme. Finally, someone had thrown a rock in the silent and complacent waters of the Caribbean tax haven Aruba, a semi-independent part of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. Aruba's reputation as a mafia island became public in March 1993 when it was described by the Italian daily Corriere della Sera as the first state to be bought by the bosses Cosa Nostra. 7. The Sicilian mafia clan of the families Cuntrera and Caruana allegedly had taken over the island. Between 1988 and 1992 they acquired 60% of Aruba through investments in hotels, casinos and the election campaign of a prime minister. Aruba looked set to be the first independent state under mafia control. The Rothschilds of the Mafia or the bankers of Cosa Nostra were the names given to the Caruana Mafia clan, the Italian press. 12. A prosecuting judge was more precise. describing the clan as a close wicker work of blood relations composed of family nucleuses in different countries all over the world, joined with an equal wicker work of economical and industrial connections, intended to improve their networks for international traffic in narcotics and money laundering. 13. The Cuntrera clan specialized in laundering hundreds of millions of drug dollars. This may well have been why it had come to Ahuwah. The island is one of the many Caribbean tax havens famous for their relaxed offshore regulations, popular at the shady side of the money business. In the 1980s, the booming tourist industry offered additional possibilities to reinvest drug profits. 14. It was entirely appropriate therefore when an Italian newspaper suggested that the sun never sets on the Cuntrera narco-empire. The occasion for this was the arrest of 3 Cuntrera brothers, Pasquale, Paolo and Gaspare Cuntrera, at Rome's International Airport in September 1992. 15. They had arrived from Caracas. The night before they had been secretly put on a plane to Rome, after the Venezuelan government had decided to expel them. Acquitted this week in a case that alleged he was heading the Mafia in Montreal, Leonardo Rizzuto will return to court next month, as he still faces firearm and drug possession charges in a separate case. Son of Francesco Ruspoli and Claudia Matarazzo, it is one of the reference names of the Italian tradition. Farmer, ambassador, banker. He is currently a delegate of the Constantinian Order for Rome and for Lazio, whose Grand Master is Prince Charles of Bourbon. Orphaned at the age of 8. Sforza returns to Brazil where he remains for a few years next to his maternal grandfather Francesco Matarazzo, symbol of Italian immigration to South America. Sforza Ruspoli was proposed by Minister Tremonti as vice president of the Bank of the South. Salvatore Caputo was born in a noble family in 1942 when Italy was a kingdom ruled by the House of Savoy. At the age of 15, he was brought up in Toronto, Canada, where after he spends his life traveling to Brazil, Guatemala and Philippines as a prominent director of multinational corporations. His company Caputo International Limited was founded in September 1985, Toronto, Canada, in December 1990 in USA and in Guatemala on March 1993. Mr. Caputo was educated in Italy, Canada and U.S. Caput, a Latin word meaning literally head and by metonymy top, one, has been borrowed in a variety of English words, including capital, captain, and decapitate. The surname Caputo, common in the Campania region of Italy, comes from the appellation used by some Roman military generals. A variant form has surfaced more recently in the title Capo, or Caporegime, the head of La Cosa Nostra. Prince Carlo of Bourbon-Two Sicilies, Duke of Castro, born February 24, 1963, is a claimant to the headship of the House of Bourbon-Two Sicilies. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Cuban President Raúl Castro clasp hands as they say goodbye after an event with students at the University of Havana in Havana, Cuba on Wednesday, November 16, 2016. Pierre Trudeau. His eldest son, Justin Trudeau. He was known as a friend of Fidel Castro, the leader of Cuba. Santo Traficant was born in Tampa, Florida, on 15 November, 1914. His father, Santo Traficant Sr., was a leading figure in the Mafia. In the 1940s he joined up with Lucky Luciano, Frank Costello, and Meyer Lansky to set up gambling operations in Cuba. Prince Michel de Bourbon-Parme. He started spending winters in Florida and 10 years ago bought his current home off the Breakers golf course with his second wife, Maria Pia. Michel and his brother were sent to Montreal so they could continue their education in French at a Jesuit school. Prince Carlo of Bourbon-Two Sicilies, Duke of Castro, born February 24, 1963, is a claimant to the headship of the House of Bourbon-Two Sicilies. Prince Carlos of Bourbon-Parma, Duke of Parma and Piacenza I, born January 27, 1970, is the current head of the House of Bourbon-Parma, as well a member of the Dutch royal family. The Farnese family was an influential family in Renaissance Italy. The titles of Duke of Parma and Piacenza and Duke of Castro. Pope Paul III, Latin, Paulus III, February 29, 1468, November 10, 1549, born Alessandro Farnese. Regimini Militantis Ecclesiae, Latin for to the government of the Church Militant, was the papal bull promulgated by Pope Paul III on September 27, 1540, which gave a first approval to the Society of Jesus, also known as the Jesuits. Fidel Castro. He was next sent to the privately funded, Jesuit-run Dolores School in Santiago. 8. Caruana name meaning. Italian, Sicily, topographic name from Caruana castor oil plant. Ricin, /racin/ricin, a lectin, a carbohydrate-binding protein, produced in the seeds of the castor oil plant, Ricinus communis, is a highly potent toxin. Rhizm, plural Riz. The Rizzuto family is an Italian-Canadian crime family based in Montreal, Quebec. The Rizzutos worked with both Sicilian Mafia and Calabrian 'Ndrangheta families, the Cuntrera Mafia clan, which branched out from Sicily to Canada and South America, Colombian and Venezuelan drug cartels.